Actually, they have this piece all the other stuff.
All right. So we are now live. Cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. So disclosure of agency. Make sure your phones are away, turned away from you, upside down, so you're not tempted to look at them. Great. Unless it's an emergency, of course. So, disclosure of agency. As I mentioned, there's 5 to 6 questions in the state exam just about agency. What is agency? Employer-employee relationship, right? Yes? Yes? You guys remember that?
Yeah.
What?
I just shut down for a minute.
It did? So, what is agency? I know. I see it right here when it goes to screensaver. Employer-employee relationship. So, disclosure of agency. New Jersey regulations require licensees to present a consumer information statement, or CIS, a form of disclosure to all sellers, buyers, landlords, and tenants on the sale or rental of all 1 to 4 family residential properties or vacant 1 family lots. So we are required to present the CIS every single time. As far as commercial, it says right here, although consumer information statement or CIS is not required for commercial, so for commercial buildings, multi-unit apartments, for example, written disclosure of agency can be a prudent precaution for the broker in all situations. Next paragraph, I want you to highlight, underline, put stars, arrows, bubbles, whatever you want to put, but you have to remember this one. The consumer information statement describes the types of business relationships. Make sure you underline, double underline, describes the types of business relationships. That a real estate agent can enter into with a customer or client and the duties associated with each relationship. That's why the CIS is so important, because it explains to the seller and explains to the buyer, hey, if I represent you, this is what you can expect from me. If I represent the other party, this is what you can expect from me. If I represent both, this is what you can expect from me. So it talks about business relationships and the duties. And it says right here, you could be a seller's agent. Yes, it's a lot of pages to go through. Seller's agent, buyer's agent, disclosed dual agent, or transaction broker. Okay? I really need your focus in this section. Seller's agent, buyer's agent, disclosed dual agent, transaction broker. There's one more, but it's not as important. If you know these 4, you should be good. Now, I want you to go to page 36, and then we're going to come back to 34 and 35. Page 36. And it says, furnishing the consumer information statement. What does the word furnishing mean?
Provide.
Say louder.
Provide.
To provide. So I want you to write above furnishing, I want you to write providing. You good?
Yeah, good.
Above furnishing, I want you to write providing. Because providing is giving to you this disclosure, right? So the question is, when must you provide the CIS to your clients? It says right here, real estate agents are required, circle, required, to furnish a CIS before any discussion. Circle or underline any discussion of the seller's, landlord's, buyer's, or tenant's motivation or financial situation is initiated. So before we talk about anything, the first thing to be given is this disclosure. So if the seller says, hey, I want to sell. Oh, wait a minute. By law, I must disclose something to you. Is that okay? And then you disclose. Buyer wants to buy. Oh, wait a minute. And disclose. If the first discussion takes place by telephone or in the social setting, the seller or buyer must still be verbally informed about the possible agency relationships and alerted to their implications. And we're going to stop right here for a second. And I want you guys to go to page 34 and page 35. On top of those two pages, what does it say?
Please read this way.
It doesn't, but I want you to write in big, bold letters. This is what you're going to write on top of both of them. You're going to write, please read me. Make sure you write in big letters. Please read me. In fact, I want you to fold the top corner of each page. Just fold the top corner of each page. Because the CIS is going to be present forever. As long as you're a salesperson and you represent other people, the CIS is going to be present. So you have to know exactly what it says and explain that to all your buyers or sellers at the first meeting. Do you guys understand? To be clear, next week I'm going to ask you about this. And none of you, you know this, right? None of you will have read it by then. Prove me wrong. But you have to know what this is. It talks about seller's agent, buyer's agent, disclosal agent, and transaction broker. Okay? In fact, the seller must sign. So it's not only something that you must say over the phone or in person. They must also sign and acknowledge that you did explain to them, right? And they understood. For buyers as well. And then you, the agent, signs, I, Bruno Quintella, as an authorized representative of New Direction Realty, intend as of this time. So as of right now, this is how I intend to represent you. As a seller's agent only, as a buyer's agent only, as a sales agent and disclosal agent if the opportunity arises, buyer's agent and disclosal agent if the opportunity arises, or transaction brokers only. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, this is how I intend as of now to work with you. And after I explain everything, they have to either be okay with it or say no. If the opportunity arises, let somebody else deal with the buyer, not you. I want you to represent me. So you're a seller agent only. Does that make sense? Or if I tell you, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I only operate as a transaction broker. They're entitled to say no. You have to represent me. You have to represent me as a buyer or represent me as a seller. They're entitled to reject you the same way you're entitled to reject them. Does that make sense? But they must be informed of the types of business relationships and their duties, or your duties to them. Very, very important. You guys got it? Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So back to page 36. So right after what we highlighted in green, it says the statements should be then furnished at the next meeting or included in the first faxed, mailed, or delivered material. If no discussion of motivation or financial situation has taken place, then the agent must furnish a CIS before any property listed or unlisted is shown. And as I said, sellers and buyers must acknowledge the receipt of the CIS on all offers, contracts, and leases. Good? So far?
Mm-hmm.
Great. On top, it says termination of agency. How do we terminate agency? First of all, what is agency?
Employer, employee.
Employer-employee relationship. That means somebody hired you. How do we terminate this contract, this employer-employee relationship? Well, death or incompetency of either party, destruction or condemnation of the property, expiration of the term of the agency. Let's say it's a 6 months agreement, right? It expired. Mutual agreements to terminate the agency, renunciation by the agent, revocation by the principal, bankruptcy of either party, or hopefully the reason why it terminated is because you closed, completion or fulfillment of the purpose for which the agency was created. You were hired by the seller to find a buyer. You found one. Great. Let's close. We closed, our contract ended. Got it? Questions? So which type of termination do you want?
The last one.
The last one. Very good. Buyer as a principal. We already covered this. I just want you to highlight where it says, if a broker represents both parties, in the same real estate transaction, he or she can collect from only one. Now, here's the thing. Wait. You can only collect from one, but you collect your full commission. Okay? It's not like it's 6%, but if you represent both, you only get 3. No. You get the full 6% commission to the brokerage. It's just that it's either going to be paid by the seller or going to be paid by the buyer, but you get paid the full commission. Yes?
Is this the chapter where we watched that Not My Monkey video?
Thanks for ruining the surprise.
Sorry,
That's my monkey video.
sorry guys.
This is what happens with repeats too. They ruin the surprises.
I didn't know if it was this one or if it was like a chapter.
It's this one. Thank you.
Well, I thought we would have to go back and watch that on our own, so.
Huh? Well, yeah, usually I would say, but now I took the time the way I'm doing the classes now. Because again, in the way it was done before, I would do chapter 3 and still try to put another chapter in here. Because I had a full 4 hours. But we have enough time to put that 2-minute video. All right. Next, dual agency. Plus, it's fun for me to watch your guys' reactions. Dual agency. What does it mean, dual agency? Who can tell me? Say louder.
You can represent them.
You can represent both parties at the same time. But that's illegal. It's not?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Unless you disclose. See, while dual agency in itself is not illegal, undisclosed dual agency is. If you don't tell the buyer you represent the seller, or you don't tell the seller you represent the buyer, then that's illegal. Why? Because you're taking benefit from it. That means you're taking advantage of either the seller or the buyer. Okay, so dual agency is illegal if it's not disclosed. So, whenever possible, the broker should avoid in any situation that might result in or be considered undisclosed dual agency, and that is representing both parties in a transaction at the same time without the prior knowledge and written consent of all parties. So with that being said, next paragraph says, simply giving the buyer the mandated consumer information statement is not enough. Salespeople working with customers should be careful at all times not to use such terms as my buyer, which could be actually construed as creating an inadvertent dual agency relationship. It's my customer. That's it. If I'm acting as a transaction broker, it's my customer, not my buyer. Because the moment you say my buyer, it's a client. If it's a client, you represent them. If you represent them and you represent the other party, now it's a dual agency. Okay? So, disclosed dual agency is legal in New Jersey if the broker explains fully the legal duties that will and will not be available from him or her. In a second, apparently I did not disclose this here. People are looking for the live. I forgot to put the link to it. That's what happens when you're making tea for students. Okay. So we're back. All right, cool. So disclosal agency, like 2 seconds, you guys go straight to your phones. How can you live without them? You know that school exam is 4 hours without a phone?
Yeah.
You know that state exam is 4 hours without a phone?
Get it over fast. Use your phone.
Really? That's your motto? Get it over with fast? Great. Success ahead. All right. So, disclosure agency is legal in New Jersey if the broker explains fully the legal duties that will and will not be available from him or her, discloses any other business relationship that might affect the proposed transaction, obtains the buyer's and seller's written informed consent to the brokers acting as dual agents in addition to the CIS, and advises that each party may want to consult a lawyer. Because again, if you represent both, to which side are you going to pull the most?
Whoever pays the most.
Say it again.
Whoever pays the most. That's why you get a lawyer. You don't want to have a conflict of interest.
You don't want to have conflict of interest. Speaking of which, thank you. Conflict of interest. On the right-hand side on your book, it says conflict of interest. Because again, if you represent both parties, you cannot pull to one side or the other, there will be a conflict of interest. And whoever pays the most is definitely a conflict of interest. But look right here. It says, conflict of interest may occur when the agent is called to a listing interview and finds a seller who's ready to let the property go at a ridiculously low price. The courts have held that even though the property is not yet listed, the seller was relying on you, the expert, right? And may become a principal. The licensee who decides to buy the property immediately without notifying the seller of its true value is operating under a conflict between his or her own interest and that of the seller. So if somebody calls you and says, hey, come list my house. You get there and one of the first questions you ask is, well, how much you want to sell it for? And the person says $100,000. All right, cool. Before you got there, if you are a professional, before you got there, you already know the value of the house. You already prepared a report for your listing or marketing interview, correct? You're going to present that report that says the property's worth $400,000. The seller wants to sell for 100,000. What do? You hide the paper? You have to disclose. So here's the thing. It says right here, the licensee who decides to buy the property, 100,000, it's worth 4, I'll buy it tonight. Right? But if you don't disclose to the seller the true value, hey, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, 100,000, you know your property is worth more, right? If you don't do this, then you're operating under conflict of interest, which is you trying to make money and take advantage of the seller. After you disclosed, hey, your property is worth 400,000, and they still choose to sell for 100, what can you do? Now you can buy it. Simple. So the only thing is disclosure. What you'll get away with murder is disclosure. I'm about to kill you. Right? Well, in some states they'll be okay, not here. But the point is, you're disclosing what you're going to do. Right? If you disclose, you're safe. If you don't disclose, you're taking advantage. That's the difference. You guys got it? Questions? Yeah.
But in that situation, the disclosure should be in writing, right? Because the seller can come back and say, well, I was never informed.
Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do about it?
Put it in writing.
What are you going to put in writing? I told the seller.
Well,
I disclose the true value.
How?
had a fair
Say it louder. Comps. In fact, those comps, Rashid, become part of the contract. Okay, Damaris? So the comps that he talks about is what I had ready to present at the marketing interview. The property is worth $400,000, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Right? You're saying you still want to sell for $100,000? Please initial here, sign here. Let's make this part of the agreement. And in the contract, I'm going to say, see addendum, comps. That means that the seller is fully informed of the true value, and we're closing tonight.
That's right.
Oh yeah, I'm going to call the attorneys. I'll pay you double, triple. Come here now. Title company, I'll pay you $5,000 instead of $500. Come. And I still have enough equity on this property. We're closing tonight. Does that make sense? Right? Cash. If you find yourself in a situation like this and you don't have cash, it's the only time I allow you to call me. All right. Anyway, you guys got it? Conflict of interest? We're good? Yes?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so from now on, disclosure issues. This is very important you guys pay attention to. It says material information. All right, I got somebody watching, saying hi from Miami. Love it. All right, so what was I saying? Material information. In New Jersey, I think I already explained this to you, real estate brokers and salespeople are responsible for disclosing to a buyer any defects of a material nature that affect the physical condition of the property. So anything and everything, I want you to write this somewhere. Anything and everything that could affect the proposed transaction must be disclosed. Anything and everything that can affect the proposed transaction must be disclosed. Now, as it says here, material information is defined as a physical condition that a reasonable person attaches importance to, or information that the agent knows or suspects a buyer would want to know and consider important. I want you to go to page 39. So they would consider important before proceeding. Now, it does not matter whether the agent or any hypothetical reasonable person would share the interest or agree the information is important. Licensees must disclose defects that are uncoverable by reasonable inspection. Now, these defects would include such things as water seepage, unused oil tanks in the basement, and sloping floors. What do you think a reasonable inspection is? As an agent, visual, whatever you see. We are not required to dig. We are not required to get on the ladder and see if this drop ceiling, if there's anything damaged there. It's not a requirement on us, right? Our requirement is to look around, see if there's any issues that are apparent. And if they are apparent, like you can see it, you disclose. Now, sellers should be aware, however, that courts have ruled that they are responsible for revealing any hidden or latent defects to their real estate agents. A latent defect is one that is not discoverable by ordinary inspection. An example might be, for instance, exterior insulation, specific form of stucco that has been linked in recent years to water leakage, rotted shading and growth of mold, and so on. Unused oil tanks buried in the backyard that you don't know about. So stuff that we cannot see but the seller knows must be disclosed. Okay? Question? Yes.
So like if one of the outlets doesn't work, is that a latent defect or is that like a regular?
Well, there will be a regular inspection. They will test every single outlet. But if I know about it, I should say, hey, outlet over here is not working. I should. Okay? Ordinary inspection. So even the inspector is not going to take sheetrock out to see what's behind the wall. Yeah. If it's painted already, it's almost impossible for me to know if there's a leak or if there's mold. Even the inspector is going to have a hard time with that. What we're trying to say here is if the seller knows, that they must disclose. You got it? Yes? Now, anybody owns a car? When you bought the car, did you get a report?
Carfax.
Carfax, right? Did you guys know that there's one for houses as well? No? What is Carfax all about?
Car history.
Car history. Know if there's damages or claims, right? Yes?
Yeah.
There's one for the claims on properties. Do you have any clue what it's called?
Is it in public records? But I can't remember the name.
Public records? You have no clue? It's called Clue. So here's the thing. An excellent source of information about past problems in any given building is the Comprehensive Loss Underwriting Exchange, or Clue report, which lists insurance claims for the past 5 years. So, if you have no clue, what do you answer? Clue. Now, the reason why I make this joke is because the question would be something towards where can you find insurance claims, or which database has insurance claims for the past 5 years? Because it says insurance claims, your first thought is it's going to be something related to trading insurance information. There's two answers that are very similar. One says Comprehensive Loss Underwriting Exchange. The other one says Comprehensive Loss Insurance Exchange. Everything is exactly the same, except for underwriting and insurance. They switch those. In your mind, insurance claims, insurance exchange. You guys got it? But that is incorrect. Underwriting is analyzing the damages or claims to a property and seeing if it's insurable or not. If it is insurable, how much we're going to charge in premiums. You guys understand? So underwriting is a risk assessment. And that's the one you want. They're analyzing the insurance claims to see the amount of risk that this property might have. You guys got it? If you don't, and you have no clue, just answer whatever matches clue. There's only one answer that matches CLUE. You guys good? Now, I told you that everything that could affect the proposed transaction must be disclosed. Yes?
Yeah.
So traditionally, we're talking about physical conditions of the property. What about psychological conditions? What about outside of your property conditions? These are not considered physical conditions. These do not affect the property. For instance, noisy dogs or unpleasant neighbors do not affect the property's physical condition. Also, suicide or other unpleasant events associated with a property are also non-physical conditions. So if somebody dies on the property, do you have to disclose?
No.
No. Okay? Now, if asked, agents must pass along any information they possess, but they are not required to investigate social or psychological conditions. Before the agent decides to pass along any of this kind of information, however, he or she should carefully consider how the communication might impact his or her fiduciary duties. Okay? So you got to be careful. If you represent the seller and you're going to pass along certain information, aren't you breaching your duties to the seller? Right? Very careful. Next, on top, off-site conditions. Something outside of your property, how should that affect your property? Like this is our property right here, where we are. How does something over there affect us? It doesn't, right? So in 1995, several families sued the developer and the broker, right, alleging that both had known that the development was located half mile from a hazardous waste dumping site. Like half mile. That's far away, right? It's not on my property. It's not my neighbor property. Not the one after, not the one after that. It's half mile. It's still far away compared to my actual location. Okay? How can something down the block affect my property? That's what we're asking here, right? The trial court ruled in favor of the developer, stating that there's no duty to disclose to a potential purchaser the conditions of someone else's property. On appeal, however, the decision was reversed. It says the New Jersey Supreme Court ultimately held that conditions beyond the limits of a specific property may be considered material facts that must be disclosed to prospective purchasers. So even though it's not on your property, it could affect the property. For this reason, 2 disclosures for off-site conditions are now included in all contracts. One refers to new construction, and the other to resales of existing properties. The new construction notice includes a 5-day period in which the purchaser may cancel the contract. The resale notice does not include a similar right. So, if it's a brand new construction, you can cancel. If it's a resale, so something that somebody already lives there, right? Then you can't cancel the contract if you find out something outside of the property. Okay? So only for new constructions. Next we have Megan's Law. Does anybody know about Megan's Law? What is it? What is it about?
So now where all sex offenders have to report that they're moving into the neighborhood.
All right. So, Megan's Law requires that a community be alerted to the presence of convicted sex offenders. So they have to register wherever they go. Now, I'm going to skip this part. I'm going to go straight into contracts. In New Jersey, all contracts and leases on residential real estate that are prepared by a licensee must include a Megan's Law statement. This statement advises purchasers and lessees that the county prosecutor has a list of all known sex offenders who live in the area. Buyers and lessees can obtain information from the county prosecutor after the sale or lease of the property has closed. After, not before, not during, after you close. Hey, congratulations on buying the house. By the way, next door? After it closes. We're so serious about this that it says licensees, so you guys, are not permitted to inquire about or give any information regarding the presence of convicted sex offenders in the neighborhood. It's a don't ask, don't tell policy, so don't talk about it. There's nothing you can do. Are we good so far? It says here, if you have a concerned client, you can suggest that they check the New Jersey State Police website for a registry of sex offenders. You guys, believe me, when I took this class is when I realized, wait a minute, maybe I should know about these things. I got upset when I found out that we can't even talk about it. It bothered me. But then I came to realize that I've moved several times and I never once checked or asked about it. So am I entitled to be upset? I didn't care, apparently. I didn't care enough. I'm caring now because it's in the book. You see what I'm trying to say? So if you really care about it, you will do your research. It's not our job, realtors, to go, hey, Fabio, sex offender next door, don't buy this house. It's not our job, right? Because you know what? Then we're going to have to check every single criminal out there. Does that make sense? We're going to check the background check for everybody? No. So, got to be very careful. This does not affect the value of the property. Right? Like if you found out, you're the buyer, and you found out that next door there's a sex offender, what are you going to do? You're going to offer less to the seller? Hey, because your block comes with a sex offender, your house is worth $100,000 less? No. Right? The property value is the property value. Simple as that. Next we have misrepresentation. Now, licensees must be careful about the statements that they or their staff members make about the parcel of real estate. Extravagant statements of opinion, like this house is the most gorgeous view in the world, are permissible as long as they're being offered as opinions and without intention to deceive. Making such statements when selling real estate is called puffing or enhancing the value of something. Okay? Statements of fact, however, must be accurate and questions must be answered honestly. The broker must be alert to ensure that none of his or her statements can in any way be interpreted as involving fraud, which encompasses all deceitful or dishonest practices intended to harm or take advantage of another person. Because that's what fraud is. You're doing it on purpose to defraud somebody else, hurt somebody else. Next. So right above liability criteria. It says misrepresentation. Please highlight and put a bunch of stars here. Misrepresentation covers more than a deliberate lie intended to mislead someone, which is called fraudulent or intentional misrepresentation. And there's two other classifications. We have negligent, which is unintentional. You're just careless, right? Which covers false statements made by someone who should have known better. Or innocent or honest misrepresentation. This is a false statement by someone who believes that the information to be true, but is not expected to have expertise in the subject. So, I'm going to give you an example of all three, right? So 3 examples using the same thing. So let's say I walk into this unit right here as a realtor to list this unit for rent. My job as a realtor is to look around, right? My job is to figure out if there's any defects, anything of material information or physical condition that could affect the value, correct? Isn't that your job? So I walk in here and I look around, right? Are there any damages in this unit? No?
Holes in the wall.
The holes in the wall are not damages. Those are cosmetic. You guys are being negligent. So right above Tiffany, we have two tiles that are damaged. We keep them here for presentation purposes. And there's two right here, right? They have obvious, can you see it? I can turn on the light.
Oh, I can see.
They're right here. Because you guys could not see it before. I just want to make sure that it is visible. Don't worry, Brian. These are the only two. I keep them here on purpose so it's closer for me to point out. So, these two are damaged. Mr. or Mrs. Seller or landlord, is it possible that you have a leak? If they say yes, what am I going to do? Hey, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, here's what we're going to do. We're going to replace the tiles because they're cheap. Replace the tiles. And I know now is winter, right? So if it rains, don't pick up the phone. I don't want to show the units to any potential renter, right, or tenant. And then they see the damaged tile. It's going to affect you. See, if I'm doing this, I'm doing intentionally. And if I do it intentionally, hiding something, it's considered fraud. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, let's imagine I was like the rest of you that looked around, but did not see that. Then you were negligent or careless. That's the second type of misrepresentation. You could still be held liable because you should have known better. You should have done better because it's visible. Correct? You're still not seeing where it is? Huh?
Yeah.
There's a sprinkler.
Yeah, I see.
You come a little bit to the right.
Yeah, I see.
All right, cool. You're like, yeah. So that's you being negligent because you guys did not see it right away. Right? What about if you come here to rent the space, right? To list the space for rent, I'm sorry. And those two tiles are already replaced. How would you know, right? So you're going to be relying on somebody else's information. You're going to be relying on the information that was given to you by the landlord. Does that make sense? All right? So 3 types of misrepresentation. Intentional, where you knew about it and you helped admit it, right? Negligent, where, hey, you're the pro, you should have known better. You should have done the better inspection or questions, right? Or number 3, innocent or honest misrepresentation. Hey, the seller told me I didn't see anything apparent. It's not our job to go up there and check the tiles. We talked about this, right? Yes? Great. Liability criteria. Now, for the agent to be liable for misrepresentation, there must be a false or misleading statement, by a person who knows that the information is false with the intention to deceive or defraud, and damages suffered by the party who relied on that information. So, that's the liability criteria, what could make you liable for it. The next thing I want you guys to do real quick, I already covered the next examples you're going to highlight. I covered with those tiles, with the example of the tiles. So for now, just highlight them. Okay? You guys good? You got it? Okay. All the way up. We already covered again. We're almost done. Counting pages. I'm telling you, we're gonna leave early. Relax. Why are you texting? You need somebody to pick you up? All right. 9:59. Don't worry about it. Where do you live? Springfield?
Yeah.
Well, you can run.
I was French, remember? So it was in black.
You don't go too far though. Like, hey, just a little bit.
Yes.
That's it. All right. You guys good? Perfect. So, very important to avoid misrepresentation. Never present opinions as facts. It's not, we can certainly get you $300,000 for this house, but I don't see why we might not, or it should probably bring as much as recent sales did. And this is very simple, because the moment you say, hey, Damaris, I can definitely get you $300,000 for your house. What if all the offers that come in, they come in at 280 or less? You just made yourself liable for that difference. So never promise anything. Now, if I say, Damaris, here's the thing. Comps in the area for houses similar to yours have brought $300,000 more or less. So I don't see why yours might not. Did I commit to anything? No. I literally said, hey, the other houses did. I don't know about yours. Right? I'm going to do my best to make sure that yours reaches the same value or better. But I can't guarantee that that will happen. Okay? Next, absolute statements should be avoided. Like, it's not all copper plumbing, but it looks like here, from here as if it is, right? So we don't know because we cannot see behind the walls. Unless some of you can, but, right? But if you can see through the walls, then you'll be able to know what type of pipes he has. But is it possible that some areas in the house were upgraded already and it's not copper plumbing, right? Pretty much what we're doing is this. Many requests for information should be met by referring the questioner directly to an expert source. The City Zoning Bureau, a mortgage counselor, building inspection engineer, or lawyer. The agent thus shifts responsibility and cuts down the chances of giving faulty information in specialized areas. So pretty much we're saying, hey, he told me. Simple. I'm not the pro, right? You want to know about mortgage? It's not me. I'll have somebody here to address that. I just did that this morning. I had a student ask me, hey, what do you think right now? Is it the right time to refinance? Should I do this? Should I do that with my property? I'm like, hey, listen. In a couple of days, I'm going to have a mortgage class. I'm going to have a mortgage professional here. Ask him. Simple as that. With that being said, I just want to show you guys a little something, since he already ruined the surprise. All right, and I want you to show Can you turn off the light real quick, please? All right.
I didn't have to search for it. They made it what? Easy. We'll tell you the next big mistake most of us make. Raise your hand, and this is what keeps us from ever getting recharged. Ever. Raise your hand if you have a problem in your life right now. Raise your hand. If you don't raise your hand, you lie about other things also. We all do. I call it our monkey. And that monkey sits on your what? Back. And guess what people try to do with their monkey? They give it to us. And guess what we do? We take your monkey. It's not your monkey. Your job when you leave this class is to start practicing monkey maintenance. That's your job. I'm a master at it. Because here's what will happen. People will ask you this, so tell me, if I buy this short sale, do you think that I'll get at least 20 or 30% equity? That's a great question. Let's do this. Let's ask the appraiser that question, and then they can let you know about the equity and how much equity you have in the property. Everybody raise your right hand. Go like this. Turn to the person next to you and say, it's not my monkey. Let me tell you how serious I am about the monkey. If this is all you get out of this class, it would change your life. Your life. At least 2 or 3 times a day I'll say to myself, it's not my monkey. That is not my monkey. I taught a class in Alaska. When I checked into the hotel, they gave me a sheet of paper and they said, Mr. Watson, you need to read this. So I started reading it. And you know what it said? It tells you what to do if you're approached by a charging bear. I looked at it and I said, well, why are you giving me this? They said, the way our property is set up is you're going to have to go down a trail to get to your cabin. And on that trail, a couple weeks ago, someone was mauled by a bear. And this tells you what to do if you're approached by a bear. And you know what it said to do? It said if a bear charges you, make yourself look as big, as imposing as possible. To a bear. A bear. It said if the bear keeps charging, that doesn't work. Cover up all your vital organs is what you should do. Go up and play dead. That is the best thing to do. And it said in big letters on the paper, if while playing dead, the bear starts to maul you, do not scream. I said, sir, step into my common sense corner here. I'm being mauled by a bear, and you're telling me to not scream? He said, what happens if you scream, now it becomes territorial, and the bear is probably going to have to finish you off. I looked at him, I said, this is not my monkey! This is not my monkey! This is a security issue! You need to have snipers on the trees with rifles! Period! That's what needs to happen! I said, and let me tell you what's going to happen. One of your representatives is going to take me to my room. They are going in first. Once I get the all clear, then I am going in. As far as I'm concerned, this mauling is totally avoidable. Totally.
Lights? Cover your eyes, because the light's going to affect you.
And it's set up in a hotel like this. It's set up in a hotel
So,
in Illinois.
what?
There's the lower level, level 1, level 2, and level 3, where the GRI is at. You park on the lower level. I park on the lower level. I'm getting on the elevator. I'm on the elevator, and the door is.
All right. What did I do? So wrong button. I'm sorry. Technical difficulties. There you go. All right. So, did you guys understand what he said? If people ask you something that's not your expertise, should you open your mouth? Yes, to say, let's talk to the pro. You got it? It's the only time you open your mouth. You got it? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I love when people answer me. The nodding of the head doesn't help me. I don't hear the noise. I told you that yesterday. Like, no, doesn't work. All right? All right, next. If you guys did not understand that video, if you didn't understand what I said so far, New Jersey's Consumer Fraud Act lists in detail all sorts of misleading, fraudulent, and scam practices, and sets forth penalties that include a fine of up to $10,000 for the first violation of the act. You don't want to know about the second one. Now, concealing or omitting material facts about real estate is considered an unlawful practice. The Act, however, offers an exemption from liability for a real estate licensee who can prove that the licensee had no actual knowledge that information provided was false or deceptive. A diligent effort was made to learn the truth, including a licensee's visual inspection of the property. And very important, not my monkey. The broker or salesperson was relying on information provided by a home inspector or similar specialist, government employee, or, very important, please highlight and underline, the seller's property condition disclosure statement. The seller told me so. You guys got it?
Yes.
Thank you. Love it.
I can blame other people.
Say louder, please.
I can blame other people.
Yes, so here's the thing. I know they always tell you not to blame others, right? Don't point the finger. Now you can say, Bruno, your instructor said it's okay to point fingers. In fact, you should point fingers. If you are the pro in real estate, then you talk about real estate. If you're not the pro in inspections about the house condition, what do? Point the finger. It's the only time it's okay to point the finger, okay? Own your mistakes. Somebody else's, be real quick. That's it. All right, next, what do we have? Antitrust laws. In front of it, I want you to write monopoly. Monopoly.
Like the game?
Like the game, yes. I mean, what is the purpose of the game? To control as much as you can. Have monopoly, right? Control as much as you can. So, antitrust laws is about that. Some agencies and agents try to control as much as they can, damaging other agents or the consumer. So, the most common antitrust violations that can occur in the real estate business are price fixing and allocation of customers or markets. Now, illegal price fixing occurs when brokers conspire to set prices for the services that they perform, sales commissions, management rates, for instance, rather than letting those prices be established through competition in the open market. What is the standard commission in Jersey?
It's negotiable.
There is none. It's negotiable. But the moment you try to fix a commission with competing offices, then it becomes illegal price fixing. And it falls under the antitrust laws. Allocations of customers or markets would involve an agreement between competing offices or brokers to divide their markets and refrain from competing with each other's business. So guys, let's say this is our office right here. We're Remax. That's Century 21 across the street. And we're like, hey, guys, we're not going to compete with you. And you shouldn't compete with us. So let's divide the market. You're going to handle properties up to 250,000. We'll handle properties from 250 and above. Isn't that controlling the market? If somebody comes and wants to buy a property that's less than 250, I'm going to say, hey, you got to go talk to Fabi over there. And if it's more than 250, you guys are going to point them to us. You're controlling markets. That is illegal. You got it? If you did not understand anything I said, penalties for such acts are severe. Under the Sherman Antitrust Act, people who fix prices or allocate markets may be found guilty of a misdemeanor punishable by a maximum of $1 million fine and 10 years in prison. Not bad, right? 1 million, 10 years in prison. But there's more. In the civil suit, a person who has suffered a loss, all the way up top, because of such activities, may recover triple the value of the actual damages, plus attorney's fees and costs. So $1 million, 10 years in jail, plus. Got it? Do you want to set standard rates? Some people never learn though. Ethics, liability under other disciplinary offenses. We already covered most of these. I just want you to highlight the first sentence. And then in the bullet points there, I want you to highlight the second half of it, which says civil lawsuit, we just talked about. Criminal prosecution, we just talked about. And suspension and loss of license, we talked about it yesterday, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, in many of the following situations, full disclosure in advance prevents liability. If, on the other hand, the problem is not immediately obvious, disclosure as soon as possible, obviously, may limit liability. So it's something you did not know. Let's say the tile's up here. You did not see it right away, but one day you come in and you see, well, a rainy day, you came in and you see the damage and you're like, Mr. Seller, is there a damage you did not tell me about? Right? As soon as you know, hey buyer, here's the thing, I just found out, I did not know, there's damage to the property. It's a minor leak probably, but we should have it inspected just in case. Does that make sense? All right, it may limit liability. Where it says disciplinable offenses, again, we either already covered, we're covering, or we're about to cover the next few chapters. So for now, just highlight. Mark the bullet points and let's go to the next page. Mark the 2 bullet points on top. Good? And I want you to go where it says defense against claims of liability. If you have a car, you know that there's a possibility you make a mistake while driving, correct? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. So, there's one requirement that the state of New Jersey has, is that everybody that's on the road, since they might cause an accident by mistake or on purpose, some people, right? The requirement is that you have liability insurance. For you to be a salesperson, you should also have this type of insurance. Now, the liability insurance that we have for agents is because of errors that we might have, so mistakes, and omissions, stuff we might not say, sometimes by not knowing or by mistake, right? Or subconscious, I didn't think of saying it. So that type of insurance that we have is called, obviously, errors and omissions insurance. And it's the real estate industry's equivalent to the medical malpractice insurance. When doctors make mistakes, hey, it happens, right? It's subject to the limitations of a particular policy. It defends against many circumstances, but it does not cover fraud. So if you commit fraud, if it's intentional, right, you commit fraud, you're on your own. If it was a mistake, errors. You got it? Any questions here? Great. Dual contracts. So when we're talking about dual contracts, we're talking about having, as you guys highlight, it's talking about having 2 contracts, obviously dual contracts, for the same seller, for the same buyer, for the same property, but with different prices. Why would you have two contracts at the same time for the same seller, same buyer, same property, but different prices? Right?
One might have a lower down payment, which will probably increase your, how much you're paying for your loan amount. And then the other one might have like a different, where you pay a certain amount of points to lower that amount.
So that's a little different. Those are offers, like financial offers, right? Has nothing to do with actual contracts.
Okay.
Because contract, we're now engaged in the transaction. You're talking about getting approved for a mortgage in one way or another, right? Which we'll talk about later.
Two different contingencies.
Say it louder.
Two different contingencies.
Nope. We're talking about larger amount. One with a larger amount. Two separate contracts. Okay, so it says right here, such contracts are used to induce the lender to make a mortgage loan commitment for a larger amount based on false inflated purchase price quoted on a second contract. So it's pretty much asking the lender to give you more money without knowing the true purchase price. So points and all that stuff is something totally separate, right? Here is, we got the property for 300, but we present a 350,000 contract to the bank. The bank will give a loan on 350, and we get away with more money in our pockets. So that is illegal. That happens a lot in car sales, but it says right here, for real estate transactions, that's specifically outlawed. Okay? With that being said, we get to ethics. Yes?
I'm not gonna, play the fifth or anything, but,
Obviously, because you're speaking, so plead the fifth would be not speaking.
yeah, no, well, here's the thing, like, I've definitely seen where, like, people do that in houses, and, because they, right?
Well, it happens. I'm just saying that people kill too, and it's illegal. People steal, and it's illegal. Yeah, so it still
Like,
happens.
you're selling the house for $325, but then you're asking the bank for $350, so you take those $25,000 to cover some, like,
Could be.
and that's legal.
There's a certain limitation there of what you can or cannot do. I'll explain that in mortgages.
Okay.
Yes.
But to add on to that, to clarify, it could be that based on a person's credit, right, the bank can allow you or say that you have room for more than.
Okay. So you're both talking about the bank knowing that you're asking for more. Here is hiding from the bank the true purchase price.
Okay.
You both are talking about financing options. Like I can do seller's concession, and they allow us to add on to the purchase what the seller's concession is. There's a very thin line of what we can and cannot do in terms of adding to the price. But the bank is aware of the actual purchase price. You guys understand?
Yeah.
Where in this scenario, you're talking about two contracts, and the bank only knows about one, which is the higher valued one. So they can ditch out more money. You got it? Okay. Now, ethics. Who can tell me what are ethics?
Morals and values.
Thank you. Morals and values. Says the 21-year-old, as the other ones did not say anything. Good.
I don't want
What's wrong with you guys? You
to.
don't. You lack loyalty. You lack morals and values. What's going on? You have an excuse because you're sick, so we'll go with that. So ethics, right on top, refers to a system of moral principles, rules, and standards of conduct. Now, the ethical system of a profession establishes conduct that goes beyond merely complying with the law. And these moral principles address two sides of a profession. Number one, they establish standards for integrity and competence in dealing with consumers of an industry's services. So how we deal with the sellers and the buyers. We have to have certain morals, right? And also, number two, how we deal with other professionals. See, whether I like you or not, I still have to work with you. Does that make sense? If it's the best for my client and you bringing me, or my client, you bringing your client and they're a perfect match, whatever I feel for you should not interfere with the client. Does that make sense? I still have to treat you professionally. Simple as that. I see a lot of agents that do this. Oh man, no, Mr. Seller, not this guy. We're not here. Close the door. Open house? No, close the house. Not this one. Don't do that. Consumers are more important than the other professionals. Yes. But you still have to treat them properly. Next, professional organizations. It says right here that years ago, real estate brokers realized the need for an organization to assist them in improving their business abilities and to educate the public to the value of quality real estate brokers. The National Association of Realtors, NAR, was founded in 1908 to meet this need. Now, this organization is made up of brokers and salespeople who are members of the local association, boards and associations, and state association of realtors that operate throughout the United States. And the professional activities of all realtors, active members, of local boards that are affiliated with the National Association, are governed by the association's Code of Ethics, which NAR adopted in 1913. So since 1908, they've been around. 1913, they established the Code of Ethics, how to deal with consumers. And of course, the term realtor is a registered trademark. We've mentioned this yesterday. For you to be called a realtor versus salesperson, right? You have to be a member of the National Association of Realtors. All right. Now, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, or NAREB, whose members are called realtists, was founded in 1947 and is particularly active in the South. Its membership, generally composed of African Americans, includes individual members as well as brokers who belong to state and local real estate boards affiliated with the organization. So it's not as popular up here, but it's two different boards, the National Association of Realtors and National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Then we have our state, we're just talking about different organizations, okay? So then we have the New Jersey Realtors. This is the state branch of NAR. So there's national, there's state, and then there's local boards. They all belong to the same. What is the advantage of being part of the New Jersey Association of Realtors? Well, simple. They offer a variety of educational courses and programs to approximately 46,000 members, including specific courses leading to the designation of Graduate of the Realtor Institute. These are private trade associations, so these are not, they have nothing to do with licensing. You have to be licensed in order to be part of it, right? It has nothing to do with licensing. That's the state, not them. And finally, we reach designations. As a mark of expertise in various fields, professional organizations award designations after required experience, study, and examinations. The National Association of Realtors, together with its institutes, societies, and councils, offer many designations. And among the better known designations are ABR, which is accredited buyer's representative, CCIM, which is commercial, right? We have SIOR for industrial, we have CRS for residential, CPM, certified property manager. All I'm saying here is different designations for different types of fields or niches, right? Niche or niche, whatever you want to say, right? The point is, you're going to focus on something. Some of you eventually will do commercial. Some of you will stay to residential. Some of you might grow into industrial. I don't know where it is. Maybe you want to be a property manager. Through the National Association of Realtors, you guys can get training, specialized training in those particular areas. My recommendation is that you don't try to get all the trainings. Get trainings that are focused in the area that you're trying to follow. Because every year or every 2 years, depending on the program, you might have to renew. So what's the point of having like 10, 20 designations, renew all of them, and not do any? Does that make sense? So definitely get one or two, whatever is focused on what you're trying to do, and go from there. Okay? Do you guys have any questions here? There's a lot more advantages to being part of the National Association of Realtors, not just the training. Okay? I'll explain that once we get off the live, but do you have any questions right now regarding this? No? All right, cool. So whoever's watching from home, I'm going to end the live right now. If you have any questions, reach out to me, okay? Let's like the way.